Everybody having a good conference so far? Couple of people. I'll let Dylan know there's a couple of people who are having a good time. Today, we're going to be talking about feelings. And as an emotionally repressed British man, this is going to be really tough. So please stick with me. As Amy mentioned, the talk was originally called How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love AI, but I knew none of you would come if I put AI in the title. So I've got you, and you're not letting go. I'm going to start with a question. When was the last time a piece of software made you really feel something deeply? Because I would bet that it was either never or a very long time ago. But to get us in the mood, let's watch a little video. I'm already over 10% into the talk, but I think that is important because this is kind of where we are right now in everything that we're doing. We can accelerate output exponentially. We can make whatever we want, whenever we want, with as many tools as we want. And we really need to ask ourselves if that's actually a good thing, if more is indeed more. I'll promise you one thing in the next however many minutes we have left. I will not use the word craft or taste. And if I do, please feel free to come and kick me off the stage. They used it in the video, but I'll allow it. That's from Apple. The video is actually from over 10 years ago, but it's even more relevant now. And I think the reason why it kind of hit me a little bit is because the stylistic choices were exceptionally minimal. 2 colors, some simple animations, 1 typeface, and we don't really need to get more beyond that. It makes me feel something at least, whereas when I think about software most of the time nowadays, it's incredibly generic, and it makes me feel absolutely nothing. And for us as designers, our whole purpose really is to bring people back, to make people want to use our software over and over again. And the more we get to more minimal, feelingless interfaces, the less likely that is to happen. I'm sorry, Google. If I open Google Sheets right now and see this Gemini sidebar, I want to leave the product. I don't want to use this for many reasons. Firstly, for stylistic reasons. There's absolutely nothing going on here. Doesn't make me feel anything. Secondly, why would I want to create images in Google Sheets? We can't just stuff things into our software because we think it's the right thing to do. We absolutely need to know this is what people want to do in our software. Just to make it a little bit more of an even playing field, here's a screenshot from a Figma product that I found in our staging server. It didn't go to production, okay? Where the tokens were all wrong, the icon was wrong, the font was semi-bold, bold instead of semi-bold. And I thought, this is not Figma's brand. These are some choices that we shouldn't be shipping to our team. This thread, 13 replies later, it was solved, PR pushed to GitHub and resolved. So Figma's okay, we're good. I open Claude and I see a stack of notifications. But what's actually really hurting me here is the different sizes of these close icons. And I'm thinking, how has this happened? Who's responsible for this? And why is it there? This is not good enough. Because it makes me feel sad. Linear, the darling of task management software. This might be difficult to see. I can't even see it myself. They are using different chevron icons. Someone needs to explain to me why this is happening, because I'm not happy about it. That's clearly been pushed to production from something other than a human being. And we need to stop it. I love Notion. We all love Notion. But what I don't like is 2 menu bars. Because what we're doing here is shoving an AI search bar into our product to force user attention. This is an incredibly difficult design challenge, and I'm sure this is probably the best solution. But the screen real estate has been minimized so much that all I'm seeing is navigation. This makes me feel like this. Truly. I might have time to deliberate over these decisions, but the more I see this kind of things in the wild, the less likely I'm going to return to that product. And the more likely I'm going to go to somewhere else. Roll back to January 2025. This is exactly how I felt about everything we're doing at the moment. Not only because it felt like things were being shoved down my throat, but because I thought there was an existential threat to everything that I believed in as a design systems guy. I thought we would toast, that everything was kind of finished. Thankfully, that's not turned out to be the case. You may notice that this is the menswear guy on Twitter. He's not usually known for AI takes, but even he was feeling it. But let's go back a little bit in time. My first job as a designer was as an information technologist at wine e-commerce store. And this was our logo. Now, objectively, this is a terrible logo. It was even plastered on the wall of the office. Look at this little speck of paint up here. Oh, also, you may not notice, but nobody has a face in here because this is from 15 years ago and the resolution was so small. I had to use Figma's AI feature to try and make it bigger, and it messed everyone's face up. What I would say, though, is that this is not a logo that you'd probably ship as a designer. But what I do know is it was made by a human being. And there is a feeling that's being presented in here that we're never going to get from a generated logo because it would be sans serif. So although this has its qualities, I think it's important to pay attention to. This was our website. And the astute designers among you may notice there's no menu. How are you supposed to find products if there's no menu? What we used to do, though, is SEO spam the footer with keywords. This worked very well for getting people to our website, terrible for user navigation. Maybe that's not the point. Maybe people were able to find wine and buy it. We actually won an award for this website. What does that tell us? It tells us that quality is a reflection of the time that it exists in. I can look back at these decisions and say, these are not good logos, these are not good websites, but at that time, they served a purpose. And just to even the playing field again, let's look at some really popular logos. The PlayStation one actually is really nice. I think this icon would be shipped now. The font would probably be a sans serif, but we can play with that a little bit. MTV, I'm going to jump over this side. Right down here, that line does not connect to that one. Nobody would ship that now. That just wouldn't happen. Let's look at Nickelodeon. Beautiful splatter. You might see similar splatters around the config stage. But look how close this N is to the edge of this splat. That would never be shipped. That would never pass now. People would refine it and refine it and refine it, and you wouldn't have something so expressive. Obviously, the colors in this one is terrible. But what gets me most is the space between Of and Bel Air. How is that possible? The shadows on this, my God. This is the PlayStation website from the same time. How many grays do you want? I've seen your Figma files. You've got less grays than this. The MTV website. Anybody interested in watching some 16 and Pregnant? Let's just switch the feed. Little patterns in the background. These are kind of cute. Remember when we used to do this? Nickelodeon website is actually kind of passable. This grid layout is something we would ship now. The breakpoint might just be a bit wider. So I'll give them a pass for that. But we still have to ask ourselves the question is, are these any good? If we compare it to that terrible logo at the start, were they even good at that time? Who knows? It's all contextual. What even actually is good? What do we know? How do we benchmark any of this stuff? And this is where we come back to my favorite thing, which is design systems, because we typically think about consistency as quality, and consistency as being predictable outcomes we can have over time. However, I've been paying attention to a lot of websites for many, many years, and I started to notice this very common pattern. This like messaging marketing bar at the top of every website. Here's one, here's another, here's another, here's another. And then I found out that there's tons of these websites with the same patterns. They are good design, they've been well designed, but they're actually just using the Tailwind hero section. And it made me really confused. Because if we're benchmarking quality of design as consistency, where everyone's just powering their same website with the same patterns, what actually are we doing as creatives and designers? I've even borrowed the gradient from this in my slides. Does that mean it's a good slide design? I have no idea. Again, is any of this any good? How do we know what we're benchmarking against? Is it just the time that we're living in? That a gradient on a slide means it's good design, or not? You can test me on that. Shifting slightly to the cousin of Tailwind, we've got ShadCN, the darling of the front-end framework at the moment, where even Figma Make was kind of powered by ShadCN. And websites across the globe are all using this framework to power their products. And I'm calling it the ShadCNification of the internet, because I'm seeing so many unstyled ShadCN websites that it's just like, I can see it immediately, you're all just doing the same thing. And it's just not very inspiring. We can push these things. ShadCN is a phenomenal front-end framework. But if you don't customize it, it's just off the shelf. And we're here as creatives. This is our whole job, to make this feel different. But we've had this conversation before. Back in 2016, Gem Gold posted this tweet. Which of these two websites are you designing right now? And we're still doing the same thing, just with a different framework. Even last year, Luke Wroblewski tweeted about how all the chatbots look the same. We're all just designing prompter boxes now. Does that inspire us? I don't know. I would probably say no. We don't think this is the end form, but it's the form right now. Maybe in 10 years' time, we'll look back at this and say, that was really terrible, wasn't it, that design? But right now, it's the kind of the thing to do. And this is where I really do think that that box that we're talking to all day is not the best thing to give us good design outcomes. Absolutely no way. That's probably where we end once we maybe having a little firmer idea about what we want to build, but I don't think this is a good thing. Because as I mentioned before, we're all designers. I would say many of the people here were artists or creatives or illustrators before they got into design as a profession. And now we feel like we're just running OKRs, KPIs, metrics, acronyms, let's get users back. And that's just not what we got into this for. We didn't really get into this for white boxes on gray borders and soft shadows. That's not what we're here for. We're here to have a little artistic expression, to build brands that last, to make people want to return to our products. Think about the Gemini screenshot from earlier. That does not make me feel like this. And this is where I look very hard in the mirror, because as a design systems guy, I have to start to wonder whether these frameworks and these repeated patterns do actually make it harder to be creative and expressive right now. Because if we are shipping vanilla interfaces, but they're accessible and they work, great. But as a designer and as a creative, are you able to express what you want to do for a brand? That's a really hard tension. And we don't necessarily have the answer right now, but I think it's something really worth sitting with. Are you able to express yourself as a designer with the tools that you have and the systems that you're building, or are we just looking exactly the same as everyone else? And that's why I have a hope that we just stop talking about AI. We just use it as a tool to get the job done. We're still exceptionally creative, exceptionally expressive as designers, artists, and creatives. And actually as makers. Because there's an incredibly strong reason why we're all here today. It's because we want to meet people, to talk to people, to build things with people, and to do it with our team. And doing it with your team enables the best design outcomes. It's not coming back and forth with a mirror chat box that's going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. We have to challenge each other. We have to push each other. We have to stretch what our definitions of product, brand, and creativity are. So there are some opportunities, I think, for us when we start to think about this as a practice and as a challenge. The first one is the brand. The brand, in my opinion, is becoming way more important now. In fact, it's becoming the differentiator amongst a sea of sameness. Forgive me for the cliche. If I look at this Daylight and Perplexity adverts, sure, they were made with AI, but I want to jump into these. I want to swim in this texture. This makes me feel like I can really relate to their brand and what they want to sell me as a product and as a dream, as an idea. The Perplexity one too. This just looks really cool and different. I'll come back to the typeface later. Having a feeling in your products as a differentiator. So we've got the brand. Maybe that is encapsulated in the feeling too. But this is where I think we have tons of opportunity. This Claude Code animation, when you swipe to pull refresh, doesn't need to exist. But they've pushed it a little further than maybe the original brief. You could just have a simple spinner in here. But somebody took the time. This is where I would say CRAFT, but I won't, to make this a little bit more expressive. And this makes you want to use the product that you want, makes you want to scroll and refresh. Makes you want to check out what tasks I have to do. This is very subtle, but the Flow website, having a literal flow on their website, is just a really classy touch. Again, they didn't need to do this, but someone had the idea, they pushed it, they spent a little bit more time to do that. Because ultimately, if we're constraining outputs or tasks with the help of AI, we get more time. And that more time, in my opinion, should be spent on things like this. Making our brand, our feeling, slightly stronger, have a bit more differentiation, a bit more feeling for our business. I've had a couple of use cases with AI. This is where the original talk title comes back into play. And it's thanks to the Figma API documentation. I have probably bought 5 React courses in the past 5 years and opened 0 of them because I just can't get to it. But now I don't even need to care about it because I can use AI to generate code. I still know what I need to build. I still know what it needs to look like and how it feels and how it interacts with it. But as a result, I've managed to ship something like 10 plugins in the past 18 months. And this is just phenomenal for all of us to build what we want to build using the tools that are at our disposal, but to solve our own problems. Maybe someone else finds it useful, but maybe that's not the point. Maybe it's about that expression that we want to enable that I said we're kind of falling out of place with everything looking the same. As a result, my GitHub contributions are just kind of going up every single year. And I'm not going to hang this on as something that we need to do, but personally, it's made me feel so much more relevant, so much more important, and so much happier that I'm able to build something that I want to use myself and not have to rely on a separate team to bring that to life. And this is why I think the definition of designer is becoming really kind of weird at the moment. Because sure, we're solving problems, but if we're solving problems with actual things that get shipped. I don't know if that is design anymore. I think we're all just kind of making something. Whether you're a developer, a product manager, copywriter, designer, whatever definition of design you have, you're making something and you're pushing it out. And I think that the word maker to me really does make me feel a lot better about what I'm able to do these days, rather than feeling like I'm in the corner as a designer or in the corner as a developer, product manager, whatever. We're all just making things together. Let's go back to this wonderful logo on the wall and what I learned 15 years ago, which is now kind of helping me today. You can't really skip teamwork and collaboration. Back in that job, I was the only person responsible for creative output. Doesn't mean anybody else couldn't contribute. The person sending out the newsletters had Photoshop open all day, cropping out photos to make sure they were quality, to put them in the newsletter. We jumped into answering sales calls if someone was too busy to pick them up. Went down to the warehouse to package up the wine if we had to. This is like where the actual blurring of roles, I think, becomes really important, because we're here to do it together. And we dip in and out of the roles when it's appropriate. There's no mandate for you to start coding, but if it happens to be the thing that you need to do tomorrow, why not? We have the tools that we're able to do it with now. You can't skip fundamentals. So back then, I was working with an outsourced development team in India. They said to me, hey, go and use Git. And I was like, what the hell is Git? What the hell is HTML and CSS? Okay, I guess I'll learn on the job. Those fundamentals have enabled me this amount of time later with AI as an accelerator to build things, but know what good HTML and CSS means, how to set up a Git repository, how to contribute to it. So even though that we're learning something now that kind of feels maybe irrelevant or maybe it's not useful, in X amount of time, it might come back and become the most important thing for you to accelerate. And we can't really rush. I personally have a really bad temptation to just skip 0 to 1 as fast as possible. Get it out the door, publish that article in half an hour, push that piece of code up as soon as you can, have the first version of the design as the last result. But now, as I mentioned, we have this extra space to do more riffs, to collaborate more, to maybe go a little bit left field and push the brand a little bit more in an expressive way, because we have the space to do that now. Just a few things that I just constantly keep coming back to all the time is, firstly, to have an idea. Build it, test it, iterate, classic designer loop, and just keep shipping every single day. Personally, what that looks like for me is that I reserve 2 to 3 p.m. in my calendar every day to make something outside of the day job. Whether that is sending a tweet, whether that is creating a new component, whether that is writing an article, whether it's doing a voice note about something I'd like to do. It's just like that time is reserved every single day for something. And I'd encourage you to try and build that muscle, because the more muscle you get for a constrained period of time, the more you can extrapolate that over an extended period of time and just really accelerate in your career. But most importantly, as we know, don't forget how it makes people feel. Because we want people to see what you're making and to say, hey, I'm going to remember that. Additionally, the more it feels like you, or the more it feels like the brand, the more you're going to be proud of it, and the more you're going to put your name on it and hang your hat on it. I would not be proud of a white box with 8 pixel radius with a soft gray border. That's just not how it's not going to play like that anymore. But to be honest with you, this slide design isn't even my kind of design. I'm just cosplaying as a slide designer at the moment. I already told you that I borrowed that gradient, but this isn't even how I would design. This feels like me, like San Francisco sunshine on my skin. So maybe, as an industry, we need to make more rubbish logos. We need to push things and express ourselves a little bit more. Maybe we need less instrument serif. Remember when I told you I'd come back to that font? My God. Cut it off the screen. Maybe we just need more people making unique stuff. I'd implore you all to go home and make something. Spend half an hour. See what you can do. Whatever it is. Figma's just shipped a bunch of new tools. Go and play around with them. Have fun. It doesn't have to be attached to a metric. So as designers, who remembers this? I remember playing Pokemon on this. Let's try and make this. Or This one, I had this phone, incredibly difficult to use, but my God, was it fun. Playing bounce on this at school. Because what we normally do, or we're encouraged to do, is skip to the iPhone. But the iPhone had legacy. This was not the first phone. So let's not try and pretend it is. Let's not try and pretend our piece of software is the first version that's higher quality. Let's go through that process, make things a little bit left field, become known for it. Because if we do that, these are just 4 pieces of glass. I wouldn't be able to tell you which brand they are. I have to look at the software in there to know it's iOS or Android. But aside from that, exactly the same. And this is not what we're here for, to make identical software as everybody else. Otherwise, we just give up, outsource it. And have an opinion. Bring through that creative energy that you first got into the industry with and try and push it through to your software, to your products, to your landing pages, to your side projects. You'll be so much happier as a result. Take more risks. We can hang things on metrics as long as we want, but the biggest bets have the biggest payoff. And I think the more we get into the zone of taking these bets and taking these risks on our products, the more likely we are to build a brand that stands up and a brand that has long-term recognition. And you as a team are going to get way happier too. Thank you very much.